All right, we are live on Facebook. We want to welcome a really interesting guest, Dr. Guy Chamberland. Bonjour, Guy. Thank you for being here. He is a expert in cannabis, and we're going to be legal in about 10 days, so timely topic. Thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And Corey, we're all set?
Hi, everyone. Getting ready? Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you enjoy the show. We'll be on in about 30 seconds. He said coming up after the weather. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned. Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio. I specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support. Here in studio with my co-host Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. Coming right up on today's show. Well, in 10 days, legalized marijuana is here. So should we be concerned about the health effects of cannabis, or is it time for our society to grow up, accept it, and something similar to how the alcohol industry is going? So it's going to be very interesting over the next month or so, isn't it, Corey?
No question about that.
Well, we have one of the most recognized experts in the field in studio with us to talk about this very polarizing subject. Just before that, Corey, I have to give you kudos. Last week, you were the keynote speaker at the Cummings Center Caregiver Conference. You did a heck of a job, and I really want to congratulate you. You did fantastic.
Thank you so much. I was so nervous because you were watching. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to embarrass myself because then it will embarrass him, and what are people going to think? And it was really fun to hang out with you. And I know that speaking of speaking, you're also going to do something at the YMCA?
Yeah, that's right. This Tuesday, in fact, at the West Island YMCA at 10:30, I'm doing a keynote speech on secrets to longevity. So I'm looking forward to that one, and should have a pretty good crowd.
Look at us, speaking. Okay, so it's very exciting. Now I want to talk about the second half of the show. I don't know if you can even imagine losing two siblings and a parent in a plane crash. Well, that's what happened to our guest who's coming in the second half of the show there was a infamous Air Canada plane crash in 1970, leaving from Montreal, headed to Los Angeles. Linda Fishman is going to be in the studio, talk about incredible resiliency. She's going to speak to us about her conscious decision to become happy and lead a fulfilled life. So that's coming up on the second half.
Yeah, that's going to be something else. We have Linda here already, and it will be a very interesting and fascinating story, and to hear how she's come through a long time. That's, it's 48 years ago, Corey, and so glad we could have Linda with us. All right, let's get right into this legalized marijuana. No matter where you go these days, whether it's with your friends, social network, school, everyone's talking about it. It's on our doorstep. And are the medical concerns warranted? And I'm also very interested, Corey and I, of course, how will this play out socially as well? Mm-hmm. And so should we be worried, or let's just go with the flow? I had the opportunity to meet with an expert in the field and who can provide us some real hard facts. And so Corey and I are very proud to have in studio with us Dr. Guy Chamberland, Interim CEO and Chief Scientific Officer at Tetra Biopharma. Dr. Chamberland is a master herbalist and a leading researcher and drug safety expert. Dr. Chamberland, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Well, thank you very much, Corey and Matt, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks for coming in on a Thanksgiving Sunday on such an important topic, especially these days. Let's get right into it in terms of, you are one of the leading experts in the field, and let's talk about some of the potential health effects of cannabis that we, perhaps we're taking for granted.
Well, I think there are many potential side effects. I think we need to differentiate between somebody who's never used cannabis before versus somebody who, say, has been using it illegally in the past. For a newcomer to cannabis, this is where there's potentially more dangerous from what we call the naive user in their first exposure, and also they don't necessarily know what dose of cannabis to take to get, say, the euphoria or the high out of the cannabis. And we've done safety studies in healthy volunteers, so we've been able to characterize these effects. And some people may experience dizziness, fainting. Obviously, they'll feel their heart pounding. They're going to have increased blood pressure and, hypertension. So that's where some of the concerns may come.
Well, that scares me. You talk about it, it scares me that people will not know this information. So we certainly need to get much more education out there and information out there. I know that you also have done tremendous amounts of research around brain development, and we know that risk-taking in adolescence. So can you speak to that and the effect of, even though there will be age limits, which we can talk about too, but the effect of brain development and the use of cannabis?
Well, I think just last week there was a recent study that just came out of the St. Justin Hospital where they were able to show in students from secondary 1 to 4 that were consuming cannabis occasionally, they were able to show an impact on cognitive function. So obviously there was serious impact in terms of the student's ability, in terms of memory, and in terms of you could say mental performance. And this was like occasional use. It wasn't every day. And this was an effect that they had not seen with alcohol in this age population. And this is not an effect that was reversible. And we know that if you're anywhere below the age of 25, that these effects can happen to your brain. The brain is still developing until the age of 25. So, that's where we're going to have serious consequences in the population.
I think that's a big concern. That's Dr. Guy Chamberland. He's an expert in drugs, done a lot of research, particularly around cannabis and marijuana here on Life Unrehearsed. Just a couple stats, Dr. Chamberland, which will sort of attest to what you were just talking about. It's estimated that 42% of Quebecers aged 18 to 24 have smoked pot in the last 12 months. That's just in the last year. Bringing that down to 15 and 17-year-olds, that figure is 31%. That's almost 1 out of 3. It's amazing because I know there's a lot of parents saying they're 1 out of 3. I know a lot more than 3 teenagers,
right.
And so it is much more prevalent than we believe. Here's a stat, Corey. I'm not so sure we should be proud of it, but as Canadians, we are ranked number 1 out of 43 countries for youth that have tried cannabis at least once by the age of 15.
Woohoo! I'm kidding.
So,
absolutely kidding. I do not think that is something that we need to be proud of. I think it's something that we need to take very seriously and look at and help people understand.
Particularly related to what Dr. Chamberlain is saying, the brain is still developing up into 25 years. Now, Dr. Chamberlain, we have a new government, the CAC, who have proposed bringing the age limit to from 18 to 21. Pro or against?
I was very happy to hear that from the new Prime Minister. I think it's the first step in the right direction, bringing it up to 21. Obviously, the challenge is the legal access to cannabis will still be around post-legalization, so it's always a challenge, for the government between 18 versus even 25. So I think 21 is a nice move in the right direction.
It's a very interesting point because the kids, obviously, we just heard the stats, are going to get it one way or another. So there are certain arguments for pro or against.
I'm kind of curious about the cannabis versus marijuana. What's the difference?
Well, marijuana refers to the illegal use of the substance, and cannabis will be more the term we'll use for the medical use.
Okay, so we need some more explanations and information about that. And believe it or not, we've got to head out to a traffic break. So when we come back, I want to hear what should be our biggest concern with legalized marijuana. We will hear from, but first we're going to hear from Lauren Glazer at the CJV Traffic Center.
First quarter done? Oh yeah, we have to. I just want to make sure he turned off our mics because sometimes he did. Yeah. So that's it. You're halfway done. We're first quarter of the show. It flies by. I'm going to check.
So we can get more specific because I didn't know there's a difference between cannabis and marijuana. Yeah, marijuana is the illegal.
It's the illegal substance.
Sorry, marijuana.
Marijuana refers to the illegal substance of cannabis.
Really?
So does that mean there's an illegal substances of cannabis?
No, the term marijuana
is the illegal. That is the illegal.
It was used to refer to the substance you would not use for medical purposes.
Also so on the recreational side.
So we're legalizing cannabis.
So it's cannabis.
We're not legalizing marijuana.
Well, you're legalizing the substance, the plant. But if you go, for example, to a cannabis clinic and use the term marijuana, some of the doctors would get insulted because it refers to its illegal street use to get high and not as a therapeutic use.
I see. So is it fair to say marijuana is the recreational name, cannabis is the medical name?
Do it that way, yeah.
Yeah. And when it becomes legal,
Yeah.
is marijuana okay to say, I guess?
Probably okay to say.
Yeah.
Can I
Okay,
ask
well,
you a
we'll
question?
see.
Sorry, is there a link? Can I ask one
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
Is there a link, because you were talking about the age, between use of cannabis or marijuana and depression and anxiety in teenagers?
The potential is with anxiety.
Yeah,
With anxiety.
yeah.
Yes.
What about
Also with
depression?
ADHD.
Higher THC if the plant's not well. If the plant usually will create equal amounts of THC and CBD, and the
I'm sorry,
CBD will do
Because-
the anxiety, and THC will create anxiety. So
'Cause-
if your ratio's not right, if you just take pure THC, you'll create anxiety in
Wow.
the subjects.
So we can get this a whole hour on this.
Oh,
Okay.
I can talk for 5 hours.
So,
I'm giving a
but-
6-hour course next Saturday. So
Exactly. So, but this is such an important point. You brought up a very good point.
Yeah.
To the bigger, anxiety is a micro, I think, of the THC, CBD, because both can
well,
be
a lot
in.
of teens think a lot of teens, how can I say, undergo anxiety for various
Right,
reasons,
right,
from
right.
peer pressure to bullying, and they look for substances
Exactly.
to
That's
relieve
right.
their anxiety. If your balance of THC, CBD is not good, or if you just take a high THC, you might not get rid of your anxiety.
So
You
do
might
we-
actually
higher
fuel it.
CBD.
Exactly.
So that's a
That's
good
my
point. But
point.
do we know if when it's being marketed to the consumers, is there going to be on the boxes
On the
percentage
boxes,
of
it should
THC
be
and
there.
CBD? Interesting. So I think we should bring that up. As parents,
Well,
like
because anxiety is so prevalent
It's
now,
huge.
more so than ever.
Also,
Right.
isn't there a
Teens.
correlation between anxiety, between marijuana use and ADHD?
No evidence yet to show it helps.
I've just heard that.
Yep.
I've heard that there's a.
I think
you
CBD
have,
might-
You have more of a propensity to become addicted if you have ADHD. Well, because of
Not
what it
necessarily.
does, it gives you
Yeah.
the same effect that you would take Ritalin, but it doesn't want. Right,
Don't get me started on Ritalin.
okay.
It shouldn't have been approved. That's in a whole other topic.
So we don't know
We're
what,
gonna be
what
on very
questions are we
soon.
asking?
So you're going to go with your teaser question,
Oh yeah,
okay?
I always forget I have to come back. Okay. Okay.
And then I'd like to get into the THC, CBD,
Okay, so ask that,
know,
and then we'll.
Sure.
and just and we'll tie in that anxiety part of it. That's a very good point. We're going to do our questions for all the shows now.
Sure. Well, I'm
Probably heard a lot of it.
unfortunately that's exactly what's going on in the communities now with the teenagers. Anxiety and depression are
Unbelievable!
Very
Off
high.
the charts.
through the roof.
Yeah.
And they turn to cannabis or marijuana to calm themselves
It's the
down.
And they may not
Gateway
know they're
They may
going
be
to turn
fueling
to the
it.
right
But
thing.
it's slippery slope because
It's
it's
the gateway
right.
drug, so
Yeah.
it's the first one you start.
So it's such interesting off-air discussions. Off-air, on-air. Oh, we're just chock full.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corey Serrato with Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking to the leading researcher and specialist in cannabis, Dr. Guy Chamberland. And right before traffic, I asked Dr. Chamberlain what should be our biggest concern with the legalization of marijuana.
I think there's multiple topics for our biggest concern. I mean, it was seen in the United States was increase in car accidents, increase in people overdosing with cannabis. There needs to be a good education to consumers, and I'm not sure if we're going to see that, because you need to educate. Just like this show, I think is something very important, because you're talking about it, and I'm a parent. I have 4 kids, and for me, you're concerned what's going to happen with the kids.
Can I ask you, whose responsibility is it to educate?
The federal government, but also each provincial government, has to begin educating about it, so we can teach it to our kids. Having the plants in your house is going to create awareness. Before it was an illegal substance, so parents did not consume in front of their kids. Now it's legal, so you will consume in front of your kids, so your kids will see that it is okay to consume.
Yeah, there's just some societal implications that it's going to be very interesting how things work out. Even going to, and one of the topics we wanted to talk to you about, Dr. Chamberland, is society. So, are we going to be in a situation now? You're going into the cannabis store, and you're the parents, and then you bump into your teenagers over 18 or 19, or even if you are the parents, are you going to kind of go undercover in the cannabis store because you're going to be nervous? It's not like going into the SAQ. So it's going to be interesting how this is going to play out in society.
Yeah, I agree. And you can even go online, so you'll be able to purchase online. We'll see that happening as well. So you'll be able to, if you're shy about going in, you'll be able to hide and order online.
Which I would figure is probably going to be more popular until it becomes a little bit more normalized, which of course is the worry, especially from your perspective,
Yes.
that it is becoming more normalized when in fact you've seen the research. You're in the middle of the research, and you see that the normalizing of cannabis is not so good.
Yeah, because my job is to characterize the side effects, so we put them on a label of a drug, and that the doctor, the pharmacist, and even the patient can read what are the potential dangers to themselves and what happens, when you start the dose, how slowly you have to escalate it to be safe. But in a recreational market, there's no label from that point of view that's going to tell them, smoke one joint on day one, day two only smoke two, and slowly, titrate up your dose. It doesn't work that way. And that's where the danger comes in. And you hope these stores will be educating, but who's educating them?
That's Dr. Guy Chamberland from speaking about medical marijuana, speaking about the effects of the legalization of marijuana. I want to go back to the adolescents and the fact that we talked off air about the connection or correlation between THC, depression, anxiety. Can you speak to that as well?
Sure. There's a lot of teenagers today. They have bullying, they have performance pressures, they have lots of them. They're always looking for substances that will, how can I say, ease their anxiety, take care of their depression. They have problems at home, and they don't necessarily can talk to anybody. So they're looking for alternatives, and some of them will turn to cannabis or to marijuana, and that's where basically the danger comes in, because THC itself as a substance will create anxiety in people, whereas CBD does the opposite. It's an anti-anxiety. So you need to choose your product correctly to be sure you get the anti-anxiety benefit that you're looking for.
It's amazing just hearing you, and maybe we need to back up and give a brief education of THC and CBD. We hear it a lot, and you're bringing up a very important point. You're just, if you're a teenager, you're just going whatever you're taking off the shelf, and you have no idea. I'm assuming, will the ratios be marked? Is that the plan, that the consumers can read the percentages of THC and CBD? And then I guess secondary question to that, what the hell is THC and CBD?
The products will be marked. That even the companies today that sell the medical marijuana have to have those doses on it, but most people will not understand the difference between, say, the THC and the CBD. The THC is classically recognized as a substance that will get you high. So that's the one that's, if you're really suffering from pain or dying from a terminal disease, that's the one that you want to take, because it will separate you from your suffering. So we call it will disassociate you from your suffering. So you get the benefit and you can get the desire to live again. But if you want to treat a condition like anxiety, then you need to take something that's higher in CBD and much lower in the THC. So the CBD is the product that you want to look for that will bring you that anti-anxiety benefit.
THC, CBD, LMNOP. It's overwhelming to me. Let's also talk about the types of cannabis that are going to exist, because some people may think specifically just the weed, the leaf, but it comes in many forms.
It comes in many forms, but right now on the recreational, you'll mainly see, there's only two forms that's allowed. Is what we call the dried bud and the oils. So the dried bud is really like the flower, this special stage in its, flowering cycle that you want to harvest. That's where the THC and CBD will be in. It's not really in the leaves, it's really in the flower bud. So will always refer to it as the dried bud.
That's Dr. Guy Chamberland, drug safety expert, talking to us about cannabis, and you talk about the dry bud. From what I understand, in stores as of now, there's going to be no oils available recreationally. Am I right in that? Or
no, that will depend where you are in some provinces, but I think Quebec has gone towards more of the dry bud initially. But eventually you'll see the oils coming in. And 1 year after the legalization, we're supposed to see the edibles come in the law.
Okay, that's where I wanted to go, because we've seen some major players on the beverage side of it. Constellation Brands, Molson Coors, starting to get into or making some share acquisitions, and I'm trying to figure out how they, there's talk about infusing THC in beverage, and is that what's going to happen eventually?
Yeah, some companies want to go that way. So instead of, say, smoking your dried bud to get high, you will buy a beer or buy whiskey, and that will contain THC in it. So you'll drink it as a shooter, as whatever, and your goal is to get high. So that's what this industry is going for. Obviously, from a consumer point of view, I'm not sure how successful that will be, because there's going to be a big price difference between smoking your dried bud to get high versus buying a more expensive drink infused with these molecules.
Okay, tough question. Last question, tough question. How do you tell your kids? What do you tell your kids?
I tell my kids to stay away from it and not to take anything offered to them unless they're sure where it comes from. Because if you have a family history of psychosis, any psychiatric disease, they may touch it once and end up at the Pinel or in some, mental institution. It's not going to forgive. And you don't know.
It's I guess a lot of parents will probably answer the same way. I think we also have to be realistic that some parents need to expect their kids are going to try it no matter what. And then all we can suggest at that point, and we've had many guests, right, Corey, is just open those lines of communication with your kids, because you're just going to have kids that are going to try it just to see what it's about. And
education is power. Information, very important to talk to them and educate them about what the potential consequences
are. And if you're concerned, I'd say talk to your physician, talk to your pharmacist, because you may not know, what the danger is for you, but they may be able to help you.
Well, Dr. Chamberland, thank you so much. Very insightful. We're going to have you back maybe in a few months after everything has been, see where we are with all that. So how can people get a hold of you?
You can reach me on our Tetra Biopharma website. You'll have my email there. They can reach me by email. That's the easiest.
Okay, Tetra Biopharma, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for being with us.
Thanks
You're welcome.
so much. Coming up after the news, we're going to be talking with Linda Fishman in the studio. She's a very special woman. Linda lost her mother and her two siblings in a plane crash in 1970. We're going to hear about her unique story of resilience and her determination to become happy and lead a fulfilled life. You'll hear about that right after the news.
At around, normally we do teasers now at around 4:33. Okay, and you could just give us a little countdown? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Good, he's great. He's really... Dr. Chamberland!
So? There's too much to ask.
Oh, too much, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
We can wave goodbye to Facebook, and we want to thank you.
Because I thought I'd be fascinated to...
That
Salut!
was a great last question.
And we've got Linda coming up, and Linda, you triggered that anxiety question, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back.
Appreciate it.